30 teams, 30 shortstops. Let's rank them using statistics. At number 30, who else but the Oakland A's and Daryl Hernes. Never heard of this guy? Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised considering he has never played in the majors before. In the minors last year, he was pretty solid, split between Double and Triple A. He doesn't strike out much and makes a lot of contact. He doesn't hit for much power, but he is solid defensively. As with most rookies though, he will probably struggle adjusting to major league pitching, and that is why he's here at number 30 for 2024. At number 29 is Paul DeJong for the Chicago White Sox. He's just not good offensively, strikes out a ton, doesn't walk at all, and doesn't really hit the ball hard. He had a 2nd percentile average exit velocity last year, which means he's in the bottom 2% of the league, and a 5th percentile whiff rate. He doesn't make contact often, and even when he does, it's very weak. This translates to a pretty bad production, as you can see in his 66 WRC plus last season. On the defensive side, he has been solid throughout his career, but it is nowhere near enough to make up for the offensive struggles. At number 28 is Brayan Rocchio of the Cleveland Guardians. He's a top 100 prospect, barely sneaking in at the end at 91 for MLB.com. He's projected to be a defense-first guy that can make consistent contact at the plate. The numbers in the majors last year were pretty bad, as you can see, but we can look back to his time in the minors. In AAA last year, he played 116 games and had a walk rate of 11.2 compared to a strikeout rate of just 12.3. Those are some pretty good numbers. The problem is, even though it was a small sample last year, the walk and strikeout numbers were awful in the major leagues. It's probably safe to assume that he's not going to have a huge breakout year in 2024. At number 27 is Mason Wynn for the St. Louis Cardinals. He's currently listed as MLB.com's 43rd best prospect in the league. Wynn is known for his defense, mainly his arm, but offensively he projects well too. He struggled in the majors last year, but in the minors he made a lot of contact, not a lot of hard contact, but he was able to get the bat on the ball and get a lot of base hits. I do think he has a higher ceiling than Rocchio, so I have him one slot above him at 27. At number 26 is another young player, and that is Marco Luciano for the San Francisco Giants. Unlike the last two guys, Luciano is known for his bat. He's listed as MLB.com's 39th best prospect heading into the 2024 season. He has a 60 grade power, which is great, especially for a shortstop. Defensively, he's going to probably be a little bit below average, but he can definitely make up for that with his bat. He has a ton of bat speed, and that can translate to some pretty high exit velocities. This makes his ceiling as a player pretty high. He just needs to put it all together. Most of the questions that come up with Luciano are the ones that have to deal with his defense. Is he going to be able to stick it short? Some scouts think that he would be better at third base or right field, which are positions that aren't as demanding defensively. At number 25 is Jose Caballero for the Tampa Bay Rays. Fangraphs projects him to be a, quote, hustling/grinder bench infielder. This means that his ceiling is obviously not that high, but he did post a 2-WAR season in 2023, so you can't ignore that. He played mostly second base last season, so the defense probably will get a little bit worse when he moves to shortstop. He put up an 84th percentile fielding run value, or FRV, last season. Fielding run value is just a stat that uses outs above average to determine how valuable a player was on defense. He really is just going to be a stopgap until Junior Caminero, the 4th-ranked prospect in the league, gets the starting job, although Caminero has been playing a lot of third base, which doesn't matter for the ranking. Caballero is number 25. At number 24 is Jon Berti for the Miami Marlins. Berti is somehow still one of the fastest players in the league with a sprint speed in the 95th percentile at the age of 34. Offensively, he's a little underwhelming. He will make his fair share of contact and use his speed to his advantage, but he's not too much of a power threat. I expect his numbers to decline offensively, but the defense should be okay. He's going to be 34 years old next year, so you can't really put him much higher than this. At number 23 is Javier Baez representing the Detroit Tigers. One of the worst things that a hitter can do is chase balls out of the zone consistently, and Baez does that at a rate that only one player can surpass him in, and that was Salvador Perez in 2023. Baez had a chase rate of 44% last season, which is the 2nd worst in the entire league to Salvador Perez. This not only means he is not taking walks, but this also means he's going to be striking out more and making worse contact because he is swinging at pitches that you can't drive. He's still one of the better defenders in the league with an 85th percentile fielding run value, which is why he's up here at 23. At number 22 is Geraldo Perdomo of the Arizona Diamondbacks. If you know anything about Perdomo's 2023 season, you know that this is going to be the point of the video where I bring out the WOBA numbers. Perdomo's WOBA in 2023 was .319, and that is just using outcomes that happened in 2023. His expected WOBA was .274, which was using the outcomes that were expected to happen based on the launch angle and exit velocity of his batted balls. If you watch my other videos or are familiar with this stat, this means he's most likely getting lucky. He isn't really making great contact, leading to the low expected WOBA, but he is getting good results, leading to a high actual WOBA. I think some regression will happen in 2023, especially because he's in the first percentile in barrel rate, hard hit rate, expected slugging, and expected batting average. That is not a good combination, but he's good on defense and takes walks at a high rate, so that's why I have him a little bit higher at number 22. At number 21 is Trevor Story for the Boston Red Sox. Don't really know what to do with him. He hasn't really had an elite season since 2019, but he has had some okay ones. 2023, though, was not good. He was injured, and when he did play, he was pretty bad. He's going to be 31 years old, so he's not exactly the youngest player in the league. The range of outcomes for Story are pretty wide, and I think 21 is a good middle ground. He should be solid defensively, but offensively, there are definitely going to be some question marks. At number 20 is Orlando Arcia for the Atlanta Braves. Arcia came out of nowhere in 2023, making the All-Star team, and he put up a pretty decent year. Was he deserving of the All-Star team looking back at the end of the season? Probably not, but the underlying numbers aren't impressive, and I don't think he will do much better offensively than what he did in 2023. He will be a good defender, though, and that is what's carrying his weight to put him at 20. I just don't see much upside in him compared to some of the guys I put above him. At number 19, I have CJ Abrams from the Washington Nationals. While Story may be on the decline, Abrams is going the other direction. After a disastrous rookie year in 2022, Abrams improved in pretty much every aspect of the game in 2023. According to Fangraphs, he was the league's third most valuable base runner, which really helps his value. Now, he still didn't have a great year, but he walked more, hit the ball harder, and played better defense. He still needs to improve a lot more if he wants to live up to the potential that a lot of people saw in him as a prospect. He's only going to be 23 this year, and it will be his third year in the league. If there was a time to break out for Abrams, it would be this year, but the underlying numbers aren't really suggesting a breakout. He's going to have to improve on those for it to happen. Number 18 is Jeremy Pena of the Houston Astros. I think his playoff performance in 2022 kind of inflated his expectations going into 2023. A lot of people thought he had a disappointing season because of that, but it really wasn't that bad. Offensively, he's similar to Abrams, where the production is below average and the underlying numbers don't suggest much improvement. His expected numbers aren't that good, and he doesn't barrel up the ball often. He had a barrel rate in the 65th percentile in 2022, and that went all the way down to the 10th percentile in 2023. Barrel rate is just the percentage of balls put in play that are at least 98 miles per hour and have a launch angle between 26 and 30 degrees. This is not a great sign, but he is still young. He is much better defensively, though, than Abrams, which is why I have him one spot above him at 18. At number 17, I have another young player, and that's Anthony Volpe, representing the New York Yankees. Volpe put up a solid year in terms of defensive production. On the offensive side, not as much. The underlying numbers are much more promising than Abrams and Pena, though. He had a 63rd percentile hard hit rate and 54th percentile barrel rate. He had trouble making contact, though. Just look at his strikeout rate. It's pretty high at 27.8%. I think he has a solid base to build on. He can hit to all fields, he can play good defense, and I believe he's only going to improve offensively. At 16, another young player, this time it's Zach Netto from the Los Angeles Angels. He absolutely flew through the minor league system, partly because the Angels don't really know what they're doing, and partly because he was really good. He is pretty much in the same situation as Volpe. He was good defensively, but offensively struggled a little. I have him here above Volpe because to me, his ceiling's just a little bit higher. His underlying numbers were just a little bit better. At number 15 is Ezequiel Tovar of the Colorado Rockies. He already put up a top 3 defensive season at the age of 21 at a position that defense is very important at. You can't understate that. Offensively, yeah, the production really wasn't there, I see that. If you open up the hood and take a look at the underlying numbers, things are a little more promising. The main thing he excels at is hitting line drives. His sweet spot percentage was in the 67th percentile, meaning he was good at limiting pop-ups and ground balls and hitting a lot of line drives, getting a lot of base hits. His biggest issue is that he chases way too much. Not as bad as Javier Baez, but his chase rate is in the 2nd percentile. The defense, though, is pretty much going to guarantee him having a good season every year at shortstop. He can still get better offensively. He's only going to be 22 years old. He's going to be pretty solid in 2024. At 14, I have a guy who has never played in the majors, and that is Jackson Holliday for the Baltimore Orioles. The minor league numbers are pretty insane. A walk rate of 17.4% is wonderful. The discipline's already there. I mean, he has a 70 grade on MLB.com for a reason. This guy's not just some random minor leaguer. A lot of people compare him to Corey Seager with his lefty swing, ability to make contact, ability to hit for power. He's going to play good defense as well. The arm is the only thing that may be a little questionable, and it could cause him to move to second base sometime in his career if the Orioles get some elite defensive shortstop, but we don't have to worry about that for 2024. He very well could have a top 5 year in terms of shortstops, but there's also a solid chance that he struggles a little in his transition to the majors. There have been other number 1 prospects that didn't take off right away, so I have Holliday here at number 14. At number 13, I have a guy who didn't play in 2023, and that's Gavin Lux of the Los Angeles Dodgers. Lux was once in the same position that Holliday's in right now. The expectations for Lux, though, have been diminished to say the least. Tearing his ACL last year didn't really help with that at all. If you go look at his 2022 numbers, he had a pretty good year though. He walked a lot, didn't chase, the exit velocity and barrel rate could definitely use some work as they were only in the 33rd percentile, but he definitely has stuff to build on. He has never really had a chance to be the everyday shortstop, which should help him settle in. Zips and steamer projections are pretty conservative on him, putting him around 2 WAR for 2024, but I would not be surprised at all if he goes out and improves on his 2022 year and puts up 3 to 4 WAR in 2024. At number 12 is Elly De La Cruz for the Cincinnati Reds. I'm just going to spoil number 11 as well. It's O'Neal Cruz. The comparisons for these two are pretty easy to make. Elly may have generated a lot of hype last year, but he really didn't have that good of a year offensively. Defensively, he was good, but offensively, he was below average by quite a bit. He struck out a lot, of course, but the exit velocity was good in the 77th percentile. The expected numbers were not good, though, with an expected batting average in the 27th percentile and expected slugging percentage in the 25th percentile. He obviously has the athleticism and power to be a superstar in the league, but the question is, can he put it together? Based on the ceiling alone, you gotta put him pretty high on this list. I decided on putting him at number 12. And you're asking the same questions with this guy right here. O'Neal Cruz is number 11 for the Pittsburgh Pirates. I would say O'Neal's a little better on offense than Elly. If you look at the numbers from O'Neal's 2022 season when he didn't break his ankle, he put up much more promising numbers. Mainly, he had double the barrel rate that Elly did, which put him in the 96th percentile. That means he hits balls with authority and with a good launch angle. Home runs are going to come easy for him. The expected numbers were also slightly better. Defensively, though, is where he's lacking. He was awful in 2022 defensively and may benefit from moving off of shortstop to go to a corner outfield spot, but at this point, the Pirates don't really have much to lose trotting him out as shortstop, and it's really not that bad of an idea to see what this guy can do. 98th percentile sprint speed, 97th percentile arm strength, 91st percentile exit velocity. He has all the tools. Can he put it together? At number 10 is Carlos Correa of the Minnesota Twins. It's hard to rank Correa. 2 years ago, he had an argument to be the best shortstop in the league, and now after last season, that's nowhere near the case. There is a possibility that he turns it around and he's a better player again. There is a chance. His underlying numbers suggest that he was getting pretty unlucky. His WOBA was 21 points lower than his expected WOBA. He's still barreling up the ball with a 61st percentile barrel rate and a 71st percentile exit velocity. Defensively, he's fallen off with back-to-back seasons of below average fielding run value. It's Carlos Correa though. At the end of the day, you can't put him too low, but we have to temper the expectations a little bit. At number 9 is JP Crawford for the Seattle Mariners. Crawford had an offensive outburst last year that not many people were expecting. He increased his average exit velocity by 3 miles per hour, which may not seem like much, but 3 miles per hour on average is a lot when talking about exit velocity. He's always had elite plate discipline, and he continued to show that off in 2023 with a 14.7% walk rate, which put him in the 96th percentile. Defensively, though, he's pretty bad, which is not good because he's a shortstop, and at shortstop, defense is pretty important. 12th percentile FRV for your shortstop's not ideal, but you can't always have everything. Some regression is definitely expected on the offensive side, though. I don't think he's going to put up another 134 WRC plus season. His WOBA numbers suggested that he got a fair share of things to go his way. I can see him having a high 3s WAR in 2024. At number 8 is Willy Adames for the Milwaukee Brewers. 2023 may not have been the most productive offensive year for Adames, but to me, 2023 was a very, very good year for Adames. This is because it was his second straight season of playing elite defense at the position. This means most likely it was not a fluke that he put up 12 fielding run value in 2023. Even though the overall production was down, he was still barreling up balls with a barrel rate in the 83rd percentile and taking walks in the 82nd percentile, two things you love to see in a hitter. I think Adames has put himself into that upper tier shortstops while JP Crawford still has more to prove. At number 7 is Xander Bogaerts of the San Diego Padres. It's hard to rank Bogarts any lower than this, but his 2023 season wasn't exactly the greatest. The production was fine, but the underlying numbers fell off for the first time in his career. He had his lowest barrel rate since 2017, his lowest expected WOBA since 2017. The numbers suggest that he got pretty lucky last year as well. The production was still there though. I expect it to go a little bit down if he doesn't improve on his quality of contact. I can't rank him that low. Number 7 is a good spot for him. At number 6 is Bo Bichette from the Toronto Blue Jays. He's just a great hitter. 98th percentile expected batting average, 90th percentile expected slugging. He doesn't like to walk though, chases a lot of pitches with a 10th percentile chase rate. Defensively, he's not awful, but a little below average. You have him for the offense. He's going to be one of the best hitters in the league, and it's always great to have that at the shortstop position. At number 5 is Trey Turner for the Philadelphia Phillies. He got off to a really rough start last year, but ended up salvaging the season. 3.8 WAR and a 108 WRC+ is still pretty good production. A lot of his value comes from base running, as Fangraphs had him as the 8th most valuable base runner last season. A lot of people overlook base running when it can contribute a lot to the team and a lot to a player's personal value. We talked about that earlier with CJ Abrams. There's a very good chance that Turner bounces back, considering he had a 140 WRC+ in the second half last year, so if he can carry that into 2024, he should be perfectly fine. I still have him as a top 5 shortstop in the league. At number 4 is Dansby Swanson of the Chicago Cubs. I will admit, I didn't really like this signing for the Cubs when he signed with them, but mostly that was because I thought Nico Hoerner was good and they didn't really need Swanson, but this move now looks pretty good. The offensive production fell off a little last year, but when you're the best defensive shortstop in the league for 2 straight years and you're still an above average hitter, you're going to be in the top 5. The WOBA numbers from 2023 do suggest that he did get a little unlucky, so there is a pretty good chance that we see those offensive numbers a little higher in 2024. The main reason he's up here is his defense. I think we all know that. Shortstop and defense go hand in hand. I just don't have him in that top tier, which these top 3 players are. And number 3 is Bobby Witt Jr., representing the Kansas City Royals. If you watch my annual analytics awards, you would know I'm a pretty big Bobby Witt Jr. fan. He had one of the best seasons of any player last year, and not many people seem to talk about it just because he's on the Royals and they were not good. Let me just list off some stuff. He had a 95th percentile expected batting average, 95th percentile expected slugging percentage, 92nd percentile xWOBA, 100th percentile sprint speed, 98th percentile outs above average, and he's only 23 years old. He's a true 5-tool player, one of the best base runners in the league as well. He very well could be the number 1 spot on this list, but there are 2 guys with proven track records that I kinda have to put above him. At number 2 is Francisco Lindor for the New York Mets. He just put up back-to-back seasons of at least 6 WAR. There was this narrative out there at some point during his Mets tenure that he fell off, he wasn't good anymore, but that has just never been the case. He's one of the best players in the league. I don't think I really need to tell you that much more about him. It's Francisco Lindor. He's been good for a very long time, and I expect him to continue to be very, very good. And finally, at number 1 is Corey Seager for the Texas Rangers. Seager is an absolute animal at the plate. 96th percentile average exit velocity, 93rd percentile barrel rate, 99th percentile expected batting average, 98th percentile expected slugging, 98th percentile expected WOBA, and he doesn't strike out a lot. He hits the ball often, and he hits the ball hard. He doesn't play great defense, but that doesn't really matter. He has an argument to be a top 3 hitter in the entire league, regardless of position. Judge, Ohtani, Acuna, they might have something to say about that, but at this point, Seager is the number 1 shortstop in the league, and I think most people will agree with you on that. That's the ranking. Here's the full list if you want to review. Thank you for watching. The outfield is next. Goodbye.